Hey, and welcome back to the next episode of this little pinball guide, Own Your First Pinball, and this is also part number 2 of how to fix the flipper fingers. So yeah, the next thing we want to talk about is this part right here, which is basically the plunger. So again, this plunger goes into this coil, into this tube, and it is bashing against this coil stop. So this could also lead to some deformation, I think that's the right word, of the front of the tip of this plunger. So again, I made a little drawing right here. So yeah, this is basically what a plunger is supposed to look like, you know, kind of like this, nice and clean and stuff like this. But when it's bashing against this coil stop all the time, it starts to deform, you know, like the tip starts to get flat, and it also starts to break up, you know, it starts to break up like this. And this is also a big problem that could lead to lame flipper fingers, because if a plunger looks like this and it's moving inside this plastic tube, there's also a lot of contraption. So this is basically what it looks like. So this is the plunger, and when the plunger is, this is the plunger inside this tube, and when this plunger is well, broken up, or I don't know how to say it, you know, it gets flat and there are sharp edges on the tip and stuff like this. So if the plunger looks like this and it moves inside this tube, there's a lot of contraption, and it's scratching the inside of the tube, and this is also again something that can break the plunger and slow down the movement of the plunger. So yeah, I mean, you can replace this thing, you know. Again, let me show you what it looks like in real life. So this is this plunger assembly in real life, this whole thing right here. So you have to basically unscrew those two things, because it's sitting right here, it's pushed together like so. So you have to open those things in order to remove this assembly of the plunger. So this is the plunger, and I mean, you can also sometimes even feel it if it's going easy, or if it's scratching anywhere inside the coil inside this plastic tube. So yeah, it should always go easy like this. So if the plunger looks like this, I mean, you can replace it. You can order a new assembly of this plunger like this, but you can also just straighten up the edges and, you know, put it in shape so that it looks like this one. Again, dirty fingernails. So this is what it has to look like. So you can just straighten up the edges and make sure there is nothing that could scratch the inside of this plastic tube. So this is basically what a plunger has to look like. So what else do we have? Like I already said, I mean, you can also, I mean, when there's a lot of dirt inside this tube, I mean, we replace the tube, but what about the plunger? What if the plunger itself is really dirty and something like this? So there is a paste. I don't even know what it's called in English. I'm sorry for this. In Germany it's called Elsterglanz, or, you know, if I would pronounce it in English, it would be Elsterglanz or something like this. let me just write it down for you. Maybe you can look it up and then find some kind of other things. But basically what it is it's some kind of a polish paste. It's something that you can use to polish metal parts or chrome parts or something like this. It's also very useful if you want to clean the metal ramps or the wire ramps inside your pinball machine. So yeah, you should use this paste and clean and polish the plunger. So this can also help a lot, of course. Afterwards, after the polishing is done, you also have to scrape it off and remove it and make it clean and clear again. So, but that's also something that you can do, or something you should do. Yeah, what else? So like I already said, you can polish this plunger. I mean, you can just remove it, take it out and just polish this whole thing, and this can also help you a lot to polish the plungers, because you can see sometimes they are really dirty, and so because there's a lot of dirt going on inside those pinball machines. So maybe some people think, hey, why don't I just use some fat or some oil, you know, some kind of lubrication to make this whole thing a lot more slippery and easygoing. This is something you definitely shouldn't do. This is like when it comes to fixing your pinball machines, and especially fixing all the moving parts inside your pinball machine, this is like rule number 1. No fat, no oil, no lubrication of any kind inside a pinball machine. This stuff doesn't belong inside a pinball machine. You know, the only places where lubrication is recommended is when you have something inside, you know, where there's a lot of wheels or something like this. But that's basically the only place where lubrication or oil or fat is supposed to be used, but not at flipper assemblies, not at any moving parts or anything like this. So all of this should be really easy going without any oil, any fat of any kind. Never use anything like this. No Vaseline, no fat, no oil, absolutely nothing. This is rule number 1 when it comes to fixing and cleaning your pinball machine, because with all this dirt and all this stuff, it would build a really sticky and really ugly grease inside your pinball machine, and believe me, it would do you absolutely no good at all. So yeah, that's rule number 1. And let me just start again because my battery is about to die. Sorry for the interruption. So yeah, maybe some people think, hey, I just replaced the coil. I mean, that's basically the main reason, isn't it? It's a really old coil and I just replace it. So replacing the coil is only required when it's not the original coil that has been installed. You know, maybe one of the previous owners just installed the wrong coil, because there are many different coils for many different pinball machines, and each coil has a different power. So the wrapping can also already tell you something about how strong this coil is. In this way it's a little bit confusing, because maybe you think, hey, the blue one definitely doesn't have enough power than the red one, but wrong. In this case the blue one is stronger than the red one, because I don't know what kind of coil Stern pinball machines use, but when it comes to Bally and Williams pinball machines, the blue coil is the strongest you can get. but you should always go with the standard coils that are recommended in your service manual. So go check out your service manual and check out this number. It tells you what kind of a coil it is, and see if it is the right coil, and if it isn't, replace it. So what else? Maybe some people think, hey, the coil is so old, maybe over all those years it just started losing his power. Maybe I just need a new coil and it works again. Well, this thinking is totally wrong, because a coil is something that is either turned on or off. There's nothing in between. It's binary. You know, it's the same thing with a light bulb. A light bulb is either turned on or off. I mean, have you ever seen a light bulb that has been losing his power over all those years? Did you ever had a light bulb where you said, this light bulb isn't as bright as it used to be when it was totally new? Probably not. So, but there is another reason why you should or could replace the coil, other than just being the wrong coil. So check out the paper, if the paper looks nice, or if you see that the paper is burned in any way. And another thing is, check out the look of the coil. I mean, this one still looks really nice, but sometimes those coils look a little bit deformed. They look like they are blown up or something like this. They look really thick or so. So this is a sign that there is really something wrong with the coil, and you should really replace the coil, because as you can see, there's also a lot of plastic, and this can deform over all those years. And another sign that there is something wrong with the coil might be if you take this stuff apart and you want to take out the tube, this plastic tubing that is inside this coil, but you just can't get it out. You know, you have a hard time getting it out because, yeah, it's just stuck in there. And this is something that shouldn't happen. This plastic tube inside this coil, it should move very easily, and it should be able to come out really easily. It shouldn't just slide out all by itself, but you know, you also shouldn't need any force in order to get it out. You know, and this tells you that there is something wrong with the coil, because the coil deformed. What could cause this deformation? Because we don't want to put in a new coil and then have the same problem again in a couple of weeks. So what could lead to this deformation? Obviously overheating. That's a big problem. So when this coil overheats, it starts to blow up and it starts to deform and it starts to get tighter, and this also deforms the plastic tubing inside, so that the plunger doesn't have enough space to freely move inside this plastic tubing. So yeah, if the coil is deformed, it has something to do with overheating, but we don't want it to happen with the new coil. So what could cause this overheating? Well, I would say it has something to do with this switch right here. What is this switch? This is a so-called EOS switch. What is a EOS switch? EOS stands for end of stroke. So what does this switch do? So if I push the flipper button, this coil sucks in the plunger and it moves the flipper, and as you can see, as soon as the flipper finger is up, this closes this EOS switch. So this is already the first thing that you should check out, because maybe those EOS switches aren't correctly adjusted. So they should close as soon as the flipper finger is fully up. But what does this EOS switch do? Well, if you push the flipper button, there is a lot of electricity, a lot of high power going into this coil. And this high power forces the plunger to go in and, flip the flipper. But this high power is only required for maybe a quarter of a second or something like this. And then it's not required anymore, because otherwise it would overheat. So that's why there is this EOS switch. As soon as this flipper is up, the EOS switch is closed, and the pinball machine automatically lowers the electricity that goes into this coil, which is just enough electricity to hold the plunger in, to keep the plunger in and to hold the flipper finger up. But if this EOS switch doesn't work for some reason, this high power that goes in at the beginning when you push the flipper button stays at this coil all the time, as long as you push the flipper button. So let's say you play and you hold the flipper button because you want to catch the ball, or you're in a multi-ball and you hold the flipper button because you want to cradle a ball and hold the ball while you are playing with the other flipper. And the flipper stays up for a few seconds or maybe even a few minutes if you are really good at it. So this overheats this coil. So maybe those EOS switches are broken. And the crazy thing is, I have already filmed the second video, or not the second video, but the next video that comes after this one, and it has something to do with fixing those EOS switches, because I just used to have a problem with those EOS switches in this pinball machine, but it was totally unexpected. I didn't plan it, but yeah, so I think that's basically it. Replace the coil if it's the wrong coil or if it's blown up and deformed, and check out those EOS switches. I mean, maybe the contacts are just dirty, so you can clean those contacts by sliding a piece of paper through. And yeah, but if it's a different problem with the EOS switches, you should definitely go and check out my next video as soon as it's uploaded, because this next video will be about fixing broken EOS switches, what could be a reason that those EOS switches don't work anymore, and how to fix it. So yeah, I hope this video could help you a little bit, and maybe it already solved your problems. So see you next time, when I think it's episode number 10, the next video. Holy crap, episode number 10. That's great. So yeah, see you in episode number 10. Bye.